Hey, what's up, guys? So today we're going to be looking at Andrew Tate's take on marriage. Like I said, we're always attacking ideas and not people. So we want to pull out the understanding of what he's actually saying and how it compares to what the Bible says about life. So let's jump into this.
Your daughter, one of them. Later on, she brings a guy home. He's like you. They get married. 5 years later, they got 2 kids. She finds text messages. She finds out he's got.
If my daughter came to me and said, "Dad," say, "Yes, what's up, my love? I'm living in my mansion and I'm driving my Bentley and I have my 4 nannies and my private security guards. And I found out that my ultra rich husband has a little girlfriend who's 19 and I'm 36 now and he has his little young, hot, cute girl." I'd say, don't stress him out and piss him off. Just give him 2 days off a week and get over it. That's what I would say. That's the truth. That's what I would say. Welcome to the real world. It may not be nice, it may not be pretty. The real world isn't, but at least you're paid for, at least you're taken care of. A lot of this comes down to money. People will say Andrew has a bunch of baby mamas and that he's irresponsible. But truthfully, a man's true obligations are protection and provision. Marriage was not remembering anniversaries. Marriage was not date nights. Marriage was not holding hands. Marriage was, do I protect you? Do I provide for you? So he effectively defended me and said, Andrew does not have a bunch of baby mamas. He has a bunch of wives because they're all paid for. They're all protected. They all have private security. They're all in mansions. They all drive Bentleys. He's doing his job as a man. That's what a man is supposed to do.
Is that what a man is supposed to do? I want to direct you to Ecclesiastes, a man who had many wives, Solomon. And this is what he says at the end of his book. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. That's huge. According to the Bible, it says fear God and keep his commandments. And I want to point out something else. In Deuteronomy, it also talks about, because Tate sees himself as a king, it actually gives instructions about the king. Deuteronomy 17, verse 16. The king, moreover, must not acquire great numbers of horses for himself, or make the people return to Egypt to get more of them, for the Lord has told you are not to go back that way again. Deuteronomy 17:17 says, he must not take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. When he takes the throne of his kingdom, he is to write for himself on a scroll a copy of this law taken from that of the Levitical priests. It is to be with him, and he is to read it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to revere the Lord, his God, and follow carefully all the words of this law and these decrees, and not consider himself better than his fellow Israelite, and turn from the law to the right or to the left. Then he and his descendants will reign a long time over his kingdom in Israel. So Israel sets an example for the rest of the world, because God gave Israel the law. They're setting an example of what a nation looks like that listens to God. Solomon, on the other hand, went buck wild. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. And even if you look at the story of David, he had multiple wives, and in his family, it was just so chaotic and so much division and so much hurt and so much pain, because he had an unbridled lust. And that's the thing. When you are married, your wife is supposed to be the safe place. It's supposed to be the only one that you have eyes for. In the book of Job, he says this: he kept a covenant with his eyes. Job 31 verse 1 says, I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a young woman. And then in Matthew 5:28, it shows us, but I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So the whole duty of man is not just provisions and providing physical stuff. You can have all the stuff in the world and still be empty. Solomon taught us that lesson. The husband is to provide a spiritual foundation for his wife and his children. The Bible tells us to fear God and keep his commandments, to reverence God and keep his commandments. And what does God command us to do? Well, we see it in the Ten Commandments. We see it in the Beatitudes. Jesus says, the greatest commandments is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. So you ask yourself, is what I'm doing truly considering the other person? Is it truly considering, am I really being loving? Am I really being a loving neighbor in all of this stuff? So, yep, I would say definitely don't agree with Andrew Tate version of marriage. God made Adam and Eve. He didn't make Adam and another side chick and another side chick and someone else. He made one man, one woman. And Jesus says, and I guess this is where we're going to end it at, because Jesus is the last word on this. Matthew 19:9, I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another woman commits adultery. So, and he even goes back to, in Matthew 19 verse 6, talking about no longer two, but one flesh. So how are you going to have, if there's two people in one flesh, where does the multiple partners come in from that? People will point to the patriarchs, Moses, Abraham, and all those, who had multiple wives, but they were in a fallen state. Jesus comes to restore man and woman back to that place of dignity. And so now we're no longer functioning in a way, in a society where the woman is lower than the man. Jesus actually elevated woman back to her rightful place so that they can walk side by side. It was always said that, God took Eve from Adam's side, not from his foot. And that signifies something, that they're to walk side by side together. Of course, there is an order, just as Christ is the head of the church, the husband is the head of the family, representing, but that does not negate the value of the wife. So according to scriptures, that idea is terrible.